Welcome to the Women Who Changed the World podcast, the place where everyday women world changers share their stories to inspire, challenge, and equip you to change your world.
Hi, this is Lori Miller. I'm coming to you today with excitement for our first ad, and here we are on Samantha's podcast. So thrilled. So to tell you a little bit about ourselves, we're a tea boutique company, mother and daughter, Victoria and myself, Lori. We're a team My Loyal tea company. Might as well say that here. We have premium, organic, loose leaf tea. We want to get the toxins out of your bodies. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook at My Loyal Tea Company, LOYALTEA Company, all spelled out. And our website is myloyalteacompany.com. So come join the fun.
And here we have part 2 of this wonderful interview. It had so many amazing things that to cut any out would be sad. There will be a bit of overlay from the previous episode, but that's to keep the conversation having flow and continuity. And with that, we are back.
Anytime you flew out of Uganda, you went to Kenya or whatever, at the airport, they would screen. All flights from Uganda, they screen you. Everybody, they're just screening and seeing whether you have fever or not. Washing of hands. Just doing the basic protocols.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was a rumor that somebody escaped, came from DRC, the tracing, contact tracing. Anytime you heard there was somebody who was the contacts were traced to the last. And for 2 years, almost 2 full years, we had an outbreak in that other side of the border, and it never crossed over. That is where you see the power of humanity coming together, because it's a whole of society approach. If you want to stem this kind of thing, you have to take a whole of society approach where everybody realizes, okay, you know what, this is no longer about me. It's no longer about me. This is about us as a community in this world, because if we have it in Switzerland, you're not safe.
Right.
Right now, I take a flight 6 hours, I'm in New York. From Geneva, Switzerland. It's just 6 hours. Yeah, I'm in New York. So that is how close we are these days.
Okay.
And that is how come somebody came from China to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been in Italy in February with a friend of mine who came from Australia. They were stranded trying to go out because the world just changed like that.
During 2020, I only went out to buy groceries, and so I always had my mask on. But I homeschooled my kids already.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was not interacting. We didn't even get it for a year. We did not even step inside of a church building. I have my autistic son has a problem with people wearing masks. It scares him.
Yes.
So we avoided it. But one of the things that I did, and I talked to my the people that I work with through my business, is that we came up with ideas of things that you can do to make it easier to kind of be at home.
Yes.
One of the things that we did is the local ice cream parlor opened. And we would go through the drive-thru on Sunday and order everybody an ice cream. And then we would go to a park and just sit and eat our ice cream, and the kids would play. And my little 3 have not been in a grocery store or any kind of store in the past year because of all of this.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is my oldest son, where he was working at the time, 2 different people ended up with COVID, tested positive for COVID. He never did. And I'm going to tell you this because it's just truly funny. So over Thanksgiving, my parents were like, you can't come over because my oldest son worked with somebody who ended up with COVID. We didn't get COVID. My son never got COVID, but my parents ended up getting COVID because my mom works in the public school system, and both of my parents ended up getting. So my dad's like, okay, it's not your fault.
I know. Oh my gosh.
And I another thing, when all the videos came out about how to wash your hands, I'm like, are we that mentally unprepared that we do not know how to wash our hands, people?
Yeah.
And so I was watching it, and I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and she's like, you have no idea how many people just don't wash their hands. And I said, I don't get it. She said, okay, first off, the public school system, they're little kids, they're gross, they don't wash their hands. And I said, but their mother should teach them. She said, yeah, but they're away from mom, and so they don't have to do what mom tells them to do. And it's been a very eye-opening experience when I talk to people about the things they've experienced, because I guess you could say I kind of created a bubble. My husband works for GE Appliances, and they're headquartered in China. They're owned by Haier.
Yeah.
So when he started noticing things were odd back in October and November when people were doing he's like, this is a crazy hand washing thing. Are you a doctor or something? And so we kind of had a heads up that something was moving.
Was going down, yeah.
So before everybody started buying all the toilet paper.
The toilet paper.
I'm going to tell you, it's a time period where we needed the JCPenney's catalog. Because my grandma talks about, she would always save the catalog. Well, in case I need it and I run out of toilet paper. So in a time where everybody was like, I gotta have toilet paper, gotta have all these things, I'm over here going, yeah, we got toilet paper. I got hand soap. You people are over here buying hand sanitizer. This is a virus, not a bacteria. You need soap. So in my grocery stores, they were packed with soap and nobody was buying it. But you couldn't find
for the hand sanitizer.
They were going for the hand sanitizer. I'm not opposed to hand sanitizer. I keep it around my house. I've got little kids.
Mm-hmm.
But it got to the point where the local wineries and breweries were making hand sanitizer. To get hand sanitizer, you had to go to the winery to get hand sanitizer. And you would buy it by the gallon. And that's what people were doing. And I think this mindset of everything is great, everything is fine, we have no problems, we don't need you, it kind of shifted because it hit home.
Yeah.
Of this is the reality of it. And my parents did recover from COVID. I know I have friends who lost people.
Oh, thank God.
But people became aware of the world.
Yeah.
People became aware of the world at large.
Yeah.
And I know in the US we've lost over 500,000 people, not 500 million, 500,000 people. Accuracy. I'm sure you have better numbers than I do. But losing 500,000 people in 1 year. So there's so much. There's so much. And then when that doctor said, yeah, we're more worried about HIV than we are COVID, it was kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
There's something, it made, the world became smaller.
Yeah.
The world became, well, I mean, it's small. I'm here in the US near Louisville, Kentucky, and you're in Geneva, Switzerland, and we're having a conversation.
I know.
And it's smaller in the way that, okay, we're both part of the John Maxwell team.
Yeah.
But I'm a homeschooling mom of 7, and you have this beautiful, brilliant, wonderful job. And here we're having a conversation as if it's just, it's an everyday thing. And that's what the world has become. Thank you, Zoom, for letting us record these things.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating. And so as a community of humanity, we can do things together and we can communicate. We can just compare notes and we're just like, wow, how is this possible? And there we are. We find ourselves here. We're still on lockdown. So, for example, we have not gone back to work at the offices. We still work from home. So that was one of the things we held. The UN actually ended up even holding the UN General Assembly of all member states virtually. Everything is now virtual.
I hope they were all wearing pants.
I know, you know how it is these days. You just put on the
it's like I gotta have a shirt and I'm fine.
Just the face.
Don't stand up. There's actually
people forget, and you're like, you see somebody go to the bathroom and they forget to
mute
or get themselves off the video. It is just so
kids
brushing the calls, kids coming in while their mama or papa is online, and
that's why this is a podcast and not video, because I've had my 3-year-old walk in without pants on in the middle of a podcast, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad this is not video.
You got it. It's happened. It's really, it's been quite hilarious to see. And then, we go into each other's homes, you see homes. I think it's been beautiful because as colleagues, we only see each other from that professional kind of side. But then this season allowed us to get into people's homes, see their cats, their dogs, their children, and just, yeah, we got into each other's spaces in a very different way this time around.
One of my husband's coworkers says, "Wow, your kids are really loud." And my husband said, "No, they're being quiet." He's like, "Oh."
That
like-
they're being quiet.
Oh, okay. But we are 9 people and 2 huge dogs living in 1,900 square feet.
Wow.
So yeah, the only reason it's quiet is because my kids are
You're
outside
incredible.
playing.
You're incredible.
Uh,
I don't know how you've done that, but bless you.
Headphones. Headphones.
Yeah.
So what is the most important thing you learned in your work? And how did it change your perspective because you learned it?
So I think one of the most important things that I've learned in my work is to listen to people. Listen to people who are in need, the ones that we see that they're in need and of our help. Because I have seen us act in ways that, you know, we see somebody, we are these people who almost, we look like we have a hammer in our hands and we're always seeing nails all over the place. We want to fix, we want to fix things. So when we see people displaced and helpless, we already kind of want to think that we know what their needs are. We don't have that humility to ask them and say, okay, what could it be right now? And I say that because I've seen so many of some of our well-meaning, well-intentioned interventions really backfire, just because we made the conclusion that this must be the need. And I know we were talking about it earlier, and there was this case in Ethiopia where, you know, women walked several kilometers to get water from the rivers, and we kind of looked and thought, wow, why would they, you know, this is too much, this is a lot of load on the women, let's just figure out this, let's dig boreholes in the villages. So when we dug the boreholes, the women kind of were not using the boreholes. They kind of still found a way of going back, walking these kilometers and carrying this, you know, 20-liter kind of jerry can back. And we're like, how can they do this? We've dug the boreholes, you know, it's giving them fresh water and everything. It's right in their home state. Then when we went back to ask what the problem was, they said, actually, we prefer walking the distance to get the water because actually that is the only time that we have for us as women to discuss. It was a sisterhood time for them to talk about their issues, their problems, the challenges, advise each other, just bond as sisters. And because in the home states, these are very patriarchal societies, and women do work, they just work in the home, they're cooking, they're cleaning, they're doing everything else. So they don't have any space where they can sit girl to girl kind of and talk about the issues. So apparently this walking to the river was the only time that they had. So here we were with this well-intentioned solution, but we did not hear from the clients. We did not take into consideration. We didn't know the psyche behind. There was a story behind the story, and we did not go for that. And we've seen that several times. I have another one in Kenya. We did one of the NGOs have come up with a solution for cooking, you know, a stove for cooking. It was an energy saving stove. So they would use just one piece of wood and it would take them last them the whole day. But we realized the girls were still going to the forest to forage and walking miles to look for firewood. And the community abandoned the whole stove thing. So when we went back and asked, they said, you know, look, we're going to be honest with you guys. Before you guys came with this genius energy saving stove, we would sit around every evening. The old men would sit with the young men. The young girls would sit in the kitchen with their grandma. And we would tell stories, you know, about our culture. And it was a way of passing their narrative to the next generation. in the kitchen, actually, they would have in a hut, it's a kitchen, which is a hut, they would have, animals like the sheep and the goats and the chickens, in there. They got their warmth from the fire as the grandma told these stories. Here we were thinking now, we want to save them from this. We're bringing this one piece of wood and they put it in the stove and voila, that's a solution. It's magic. So they abandoned our one stove thing and they said, listen, it's just broken our social kind of cultural fabric. And so it doesn't fit within what we want to do. And I saw aid, or an intervention just kind of backfire, just like that. So I've learned about listening, and not just listening for the sake of listening. I've learned about listening and valuing the suggestions that come from people. And those suggestions, we need to incorporate them in the design of our programs or the interventions, and also include the people that you're serving within that in the implementation. Because there's always the assumption that even with refugees, the assumption that because they're we think that they don't have ideas. We assume that, okay, they're so traumatized that they still have ideas. And those ideas are valuable. We need to listen to them. And that needs to help us in developing designing the programs that are meant to help them out. So listening is a huge one for me. Yeah, because I've seen too many times, like things just going awry just because we did not listen.
Well, the whole thing about the women going together, that if that doesn't prove that women are the same all around the world, we all need girl time. We all need time talking with another woman who gets what's going on inside of us. Yeah. Don't talk to your husband about giving birth. He has no clue. No. The closest thing he'll ever experience is if he has a kidney stone. But you can talk to a woman about what's going on in your body and she gets it. Absolutely. And so they were like, no, you're not taking my time. In a way, the help actually made it harder for them emotionally, it sounds like.
Absolutely. We shut that. They had a very small window. They had a very small space. Okay, so the walk, whether it was 3 kilometers or whatever it was, that was the time that they could talk. But then when we brought the boreholes in the village, they had no, it was just outside and you just walk, and fetch the water and that's it. So we kind of robbed them of that space. And we forgot that there was something else, that we didn't see the total picture as we just focused on the water, and that's what we wanted to provide. And yet there was a bigger layer that we did not really even know that was existed, and yet it was there.
Well, the one in the village is just like the convenience store. You got to go there if you need water real quick, but otherwise I'm taking my walk. And then listening to people and about what they need, that's seems like it has more to do with their culture than anything, because this concept of the grandmothers telling stories and sitting there, it's not something that's part of American culture. Usually grandparents, they live on their own until they end up going in a nursing home, and it's more of a the Waltons where the grandparents live, and it takes a different mindset and a different culture of thinking, that it takes the grandparents realizing they can't control everything anymore because they're not independent anymore, and the children still telling the grandparents, you have value. You're still you need to be sharing this because this is part of your legacy. Those stories are their legacy to their grandchildren.
Because again, what you say, in Africa mostly, we did not write our stories. Stories were passed, it was all oral narrative. So they were passed orally. And so, that's how it went. I mean, now I know that communities have changed dramatically over the years, significantly, because people move away, they go to school, I'm out here, originally born in Kenya, I've lived out of Kenya for the last 22 years, so there is a lot that has happened, but still there's some communities that are still quite close to, they're still behind.
Right.
And for you as a practitioner who really has a heart to help, I think before you do anything is trying to engage with them, understand them. So whatever you're designing should come from, you design it with them from their perspective rather than from our perspective. There is a way that, we are conditioned in thinking because of our exposure, our own socialization, and we think of things, we look at things and immediately you're like, for example, food, you look at people eating things that you don't eat and you're like, oh my God, this is so yuck. You don't realize that they started this long time and it's part of their culture. So how do you appreciate that? And yet also those things that are against human rights, there are certain practices that no, these are harmful. Like the one I was telling you about the circumcision of girls, that is harmful because at the same time we deal with adult ladies, like women, when they get married, when they want to have kids and all that, they're affected deeply. They don't have natural kind of birth because of what was done to them. So how do we help communities start understanding that actually it is mutilation of the person and you're actually creating a bigger problem? So how do you engage them and try to make them understand that, yes, they're doing this, it's been done from whatever years, but it is not good health-wise. It will affect the girl's health. So having that humility and balancing and hearing, and also where that this, by the basic human right, this is wrong, and also health-wise, it is wrong. How you tell them that, you need to really think about that, but appreciate them and say they're doing things differently from you, but however, this one is going to have a consequence. And so maybe you don't need to do it. And also get people from their communities who have broken those kind of barriers, get their own, who have broken the barriers, who have done things differently, to be your surrogate, like to talk to these people, to reach out. He or she will talk in their own language, which you cannot speak, and they will connect, they will connect. Yeah,
So you're doing big things to change the world. How can the average woman like me, who is living in the States, whether she thinks she has a privileged life or not, how can she help you in your work and be a part of it?
So, okay, one is through, normally we appeal on behalf of people who are in desperate situations, who need help. So we appeal, we ask for funding, they're different, all the UN agencies normally, if you go online, they always have a way that you can contribute, and then that becomes part of the ballpark that goes to help people. But I say that another thing that my eyes are very open to is also knowing that we have needs everywhere we are. Wherever we are, there are needs around us. I know when you're in your community, it's very difficult to, start something sometimes, because as the Bible says that, the prophet sometimes is not welcomed at home. So sometimes it's that there's that challenge, but there are needs, and you can always partner with, there are so many organizations, and the United States is one of the greatest. It's been the greatest contributor and funder of all this humanitarian and development work. There's so many, including churches. There are churches that are doing work, going to these places and trying to do the kind of work that we do, because as the United Nations, we can't do it all. We also can't do it all. I said we have 160 million people right now in 60 countries who really, really need humanitarian aid. But even out of 160, that is just a small fraction of need. We will prioritize, maybe the refugees or people who are displaced or people who are in open conflict, that kind of thing. But it doesn't reach everybody still, even for example, in Uganda, where I was working the last 2 years, we were focusing on the refugees, which was 1 million, but it's 1 million people out of 42 million, So they're Ugandans themselves who are really in desperate need. And I see the work of faith-based organizations really coming in handy, because and I'm sorry if I'm going to sound like, too churchy here, but I know that the gospel of Christ is a wholesome kind of gospel. So there is the faith, there is the spiritual part, but there is also the physical component. And that is why the Bible says, like, if you see a brother in need and you tell them, oh, go home, God bless you, and you don't meet that need, then it's empty, it's empty. And so there are opportunities for you to partner with those kind of organizations, churches that are sending missionaries or doing things within the communities. Because I am so convinced that if each one of us could just be a light where we are, even before you move around, and God will call you, because sometimes he will call you to go far off. Please go, listen and go, because he has anointed you for that mission. And he has prepared you to minister and to fulfill that calling in wherever place you're going. In the meantime, around where you are, or the next state, or wherever it is, you can help both financially, or you can help with, just what you have in your hands. It could be just some sandwiches or something, hand sanitizer, whatever it is. There is something small that we can do. Because one thing I know is for sure, almost every human being has that, where we feel that we're not enough.
Right.
And we feel like, no, I must have this so I can do that. No, God really wants us to use the rod that is put in our hands. So it's just looking and saying, what is the rod that is in my hand today? Lord, what is it? And then asking that he opens our eyes to see where the need is, and then we fulfill it. Because the moment you start living for others, you're a mother and you live for others. So I know this is difficult, because this is what you've been doing, service to others, and service 24/7 almost every day, so adding that to your whatever you do every day in the home can be quite stretching. But there is, for any other woman out there, please don't despise what you have in your hand. Start with that. And once you step out of the boat, God will take you to places. My journey with the United Nations started with a 3-day trial. And I was just supposed to be, they were going to show me how they write their stories, how they focus, and blah, blah, blah. 3 days in January 1999. Today, it is 22 years ago. I've now gone through different agencies within the United Nations. I've worked with development. I've worked with peacekeeping, humanitarian. I've been everywhere. Something which was 3 days, just 3 days. And there was no job, and there was no ad that I applied to. No, I just went for the 3 days, and they said, oh, this is good. You're so good. Please stay with us for 1 week. And they said, oh my God, you're so good. How about 2 weeks? And then they said, no. Actually, we will give you a month and we will create a position for you. I did not know. So this is how it was. So you just never know. Just those little connections, step out of the boat, just do whatever, and he will take you to places you've never, ever imagined.
So I have 2 more questions for you. And
Go for it.
I think these are probably going to be the hardest ones that I have.
Oh, wow.
When you are on the field and you're dealing with people who are suffering, how do you give them hope? How do you be a hope dealer to those people?
Samantha, it's one of the hardest things that you can do, because as a journalist, I was trained to distance myself from the story, because I need to cover the story. If I go and break down, then there is no coverage of the story, So I was trained to distance myself from the story, but that doesn't mean after that, as a human being, it doesn't affect me. One case was when the first ever terrorist attack in Nairobi, You remember in 94, around 94,
Yes.
95, there was the first time we had of terrorism against American, whatever. It was the US embassy in Nairobi that was bombed. And it was 10 a.m. I remember I was on the call. I was working for the German press agency covering 14 countries in Africa, but we were based in Nairobi. Then I was on the phone with a lady and I heard this noise, boom, then a second one. And I told the lady, I think that's a bomb. And I put the phone down, I ran out, and it's a news agency, a building where all the international news services were. Reuters, we had BBC, we had Deutsche Welle, we had VOA, Voice of America, we had mine was German press agency. We were all in this, we all ran out and we just saw this smoke billowing and all the buildings, all the glass was just falling, and we're like, wow. And the noise and the cries, and it was just mayhem. By the time we were like about 7 minutes off from the embassy, by the time we got nearby, we saw people blown up. It was just, and I remember I went and, just got there, we're just covering, trying to talk, calling headquarters. This is what's happening. You run back, you file the story and all that. And I remember after that event, probably, and then I lost my own landlord. He was an engineer working in the next building to the embassy. He was blown up. So he left for work in the morning, never to come back. And his wife and 3 kids were at home. And so, after that, I think maybe a week after that, I was haunted. I would see the buildings, I see just the nightmare. So you have those kind of things. And the worst one was in Rwanda, in the genocide. I covered that. The smell still stays with me of people they murdered 800,000 people. So you see that and the faith and as a Christian, you're just like, how is this even possible? So there's that helplessness. But again, you collect yourself that there is somebody who needs to know what's going on. So you will pick up yourself and do the work that you have to do. Then there is the other side where you feel really, you see people they have come and they're in such a dire situation. There is nothing. They're in the field. The rain comes, it's on them. Whatever comes, the sun, they have nowhere to go. They're really just here. So starting to figure out, and then you find that probably there is a government, sometimes it's a government or the rebels who have kind of barricaded and you cannot reach them. So you know that people are in dire need over there, you can't reach them. So such things really leave you feel so helpless and so hopeless. But again, you need to help them, you need to figure it out. So as a human being, I know there is something that kicks in. As a mother, you can relate to that. When a kid is in, there is something that is supernatural that kicks in within you and you do the work. Sometimes I feel that we're not doing enough. Sometimes I know that politics comes in the middle of this because somebody says, no, you need to focus on this, don't focus on that. And I know the needs of these people are this, but then because the country wants to support something else, what are you going to do? So there are moments when giving that hope is very difficult because you see that they've been in this situation for a long time. And you don't see clearly, like, how is this going to end? It's like talking to somebody in Aleppo in Syria. The war has been going on for how long? What do you tell them? Sometimes you don't have words. There are no adequate words to express, what you feel. But we can smile still. We smile. We try to find things that relieve the person a little bit. It's just trying to find, and that is why, like children, for example, we create spaces for them to play. So even in this field, as we are trying to organize, we create a space for the children to play. And, sometimes you get to realize that some things are just the way they are, and maybe there is not so much that you can do to change them. So you kind of come to terms with that, and it hurts. It hurts as a human being. And but with all, you have to also realize that you're responsible. When they're down, you need to kind of just keep the hope up, and whether it means and that's why we stretch ourselves. It's almost like a 24/7. If you're in the field, it's a 24/7 job. It's a Monday to Monday, every day. You are just working. Yeah, and we experience a lot of burnout also of staff, because it takes a lot of who you are, and the energy, and just the emotional part of it, because you're a human being in the end.
Right.
You still feel that. Yeah.
So how do you deal with your emotions in facing hard things like this?
I think personally, I think one is I've always turned to God, because I know that without God, this would not, I am just because of His grace. Okay. So, and I know that's a huge part. It might sound corny, some people who don't have that relationship, it just doesn't make sense. But I think human beings, we have the intellect, we have this physical body, we have the spirit, and we have the emotions that all need to be fed. So for me, being a person of faith has really helped me in my work, because I know that there is hope above everything, and that has helped me. The other thing is also having friends who understand, who I can talk to, having people that are mentors, like who I can call up and talk to, because sometimes the friends don't have the same experience, so they don't understand.
Right.
But seeking out people who have gone ahead of me in the area of work has also been very helpful for me. And of course, my family, for sure. I have two girls that, they're almost like, they now teach me, actually. They now teach me. I'm now like, I don't know so much. They teach me. And that is also, so having people, you need to have a couple of people that you can call on and can pick you up, because again, not everybody will speak life into you. Some people will actually tear you down, but it is actually being very intentional. I know in JMT, John Maxwell team, we are taught to make sure you have the right people that can speak into you, and can encourage you, and can just refuel you a little bit. So it's starting to very, very intentionally looking around, who are the one or two angels that I have that can help me in this. And in every area of our life, we always have such people. It's looking and weeding through life, and because you can't do life alone, you need others. So for me, that's been how I refuel. One of the areas that I've struggled with a lot is taking time off. Yeah, because you see, it's an area of passion, it's an area of calling. So I want to help. And as I said, I have a big hammer, always looking for the nails. So one of the main things that have been, whatever is burnout and fatigue.
We need to find you a well you have to walk to.
Yeah. And you cannot give if you don't have. No, you have to refute. You have to, yes, there's a lot of work to do, but you have to take care of your health and yourself. So that's something I've learned.
I don't know if you heard what I said, but we need to find you a well to walk to with some girlfriends.
I know.
So those were some really hard things, but I want to end with something fun. If I could give you a billboard, like the big signs, I don't know if they have them in Geneva, but along the highways we have big billboard signs.
Yes.
What would you say on your billboard?
Oh,
it's yours. You can say whatever you want.
I would say that, is it a general or about me, or just
it's
general?
whatever you want. It's your billboard. I didn't realize this would be such a hard question for you. I'm sorry.
It is so hard. It is very, very hard, because sometimes it sounds like cliche or funny, whatever. And I'm like,
what it shows is what matters to you.
Yes, yes. I would say that I wanted to say that, I would say that if every individual, if only we could love one another, the world would be so different than what it is today. If we could only love one another, the world would be so, so different. And loving one another, I know it's very difficult, but if we tried, just tried, because if we tried, then we would act with so much respect and almost restraint toward the other person, or if we could have just a small space. I'm a dreamer here. If we could just do that, there'd be so much, things would be so different. So different. The things that we're talking about right now, maybe we wouldn't have as many. I know that we cannot wish everything away. No, I know that as we are in this body, we will have challenges, but there are some challenges that we have today that are so unnecessary, so unnecessary, because there's power in unity. There is power. If we're divided, no, it's not going to work. From our homes, from our communities, if we could only find that, have just a little space and we could know the power of unity, then we would have our nations and our communities, our families transformed, and family transformed, individuals transformed, then family transformed, then community transformed, and nation transformed.
My one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs was always starting with "The Man in the Mirror." The Man in the Mirror. I love that song. Talking about working in change. It's deep. And then I remember John Maxwell saying, "The world is made up of others. There's only one you."
Absolutely.
So you need to spend more time thinking about others than you do yourself.
Yeah.
So lots of eye-opening things in a different perspective that I took notes. And it's even recorded. But I wanted to thank you, Lily, for coming today and for talking with me. I know you're 6 hours ahead of me, and you guys don't know this, but we talked for an hour before then. Actually, it was more than an hour. And I'm not sharing that with you. It was not recorded. But it has been so great to talk to you and to have our eyes opened to something that we don't even think about, and to finally find out what the UN does and how it is helping, whether we in the US need the help or not. But there are other places in the world who need the help, and the UN needs our help to help them. Absolutely. So thank you for sharing all of that and for the stories. And I'll keep telling you, you are an amazing woman and you do amazing things. And I am so proud and honored to be considered your friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much, my friend. You are just awesome. You do not know how in awe I am for all that you've done. And you think like that is not anything. That is the place where we start our ministry from.
You weren't supposed to be telling on me. Did you hear? You weren't supposed to be telling on me. Yes, she was talking about me earlier, but she was talking to you too. She's laughing. I'm watching video. This is fabulous.
No, because I know so many fellow girls, we don't really value like what we do. And we do so much to keep communities, because communities are formed from the family, and holding the families together, that's the greatest ministry that you could have. So yeah, never ever say, I'm just, no, you hold the world actually. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So that's all I've got for you guys. I will be seeing you soon, and I hope you have a blessed day. Bye.
Hi, this is Lori Miller. I'm coming to you today with excitement for our first ad, and here we are on Samantha's podcast. So thrilled. So to tell you a little bit about ourselves, we're a tea boutique company, mother and daughter, Victoria and myself, Lori. We're a team My Loyal Tea Company, might as well say that here. We have premium, organic, loose leaf tea. We want to get the toxins out of your bodies. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook at My Loyal Tea Company, LOYALTEA Company, all spelled out. And our website is myloyalteacompany.com. So come join the fun.